Welcome to What Are You Sporting About podcast, a podcast about business, employment, sports, and entertainment to help educate, support, and guide you to your next level. Here's your host, attorney Sivonnia DeBarros.
Hi there, Sivonnia DeBarros here, the protector of athletes, also the founder and principal attorney of the S.L. DeBarros Law Firm, where we represent 6- and 7-figure business owners and athletes in business. I'm so excited to have Mr. E.J. Cutliff, who's become a quick bro to me. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey, what's up, sis? How are you?
Nothing much. I'm doing good. I'm so glad that you were able to join me on the podcast. Since we first met through a mutual sports contact, we've been in touch ever since. And so before we start talking more about what you're doing currently for your podcast and everything else in sports, I want to give people a little bit of background on you. So for EJ, guys, he is a top ranking sports marketing leader who drives multi-millions in new revenue. Who don't need that? He's also delivered at least double-digit percentage growth in every sales position throughout his career. He is an expert in business sports marketing. He offers proven performance, discovering sponsorship opportunities to create campaigns that elevate your brand. So if you need that, make sure you hit him up. And on top of that, he specializes in creating strong relationships with major national. His reputation is for delivering custom, hard-hitting presentations to top decision makers. He amplifies client relationships by monitoring competitive industry trends to understand points of differentiation and new brand opportunities. He has an added value, or provides you with an added value, by bringing to the table something that he's well-versed in, present and emerging sales practices, as well as platforms of integrating across online and offline channels. Whew, honey, that's a mouthful because I have no idea about marketing. I do my best, but it is definitely not in my wheelhouse. So what got you into that field?
Well, first of all, can you hear me there? Sorry about it. Well, first of all, thank you. And that is a lot, right? But in life we do a lot. So what first got me into that is, funny enough, I started my road down in the IT path, and I'm just not an IT person. You can't keep baby in the corner, man. So it just wasn't something for me. Just knowing that kind of what kind of brought us together. We all have a brand, and just really seeing that more and more as we, go through life. And I just really had a niche for it. So that's initially what got me in. And I just started seeing little things from the sports business side of things, and just how marketing and just how it just all came together.
Wow, that's awesome. And we're going to dig a little bit more into that later. But I want to start off by asking you, what are you sporting about?
Oh, I love that question. That makes sense, right? So what I am sporting about is the culture. I am sporting about Blacks in sports and the business of sports, and just really combining those two. And, I started on a journey and just really saw alignment with that in all senses, from what I do in my 9 to 5, for what I did in my personal aspirations, into, building my own entrepreneurial spirit, and just how those overlapped, and having to do that for myself. Right. Being a former athlete that didn't make it pro. I mean, I played semi-pro and, chase that dream to the league, that we all do in our sports career. And I had to tackle what's next, going off of where you just spoke, and a mutual friend of ours, shout out to Tackle What's Next. But just going through that process myself, and having maybe more of the tools to do that for some of my partners that have played longer in their careers, because they've been spending time being that best athlete, that 1% athlete, while I had to switch gears from being that best 1% athlete to being that 1% best business person.
Oh, come on now. That 1% best business person. Oh my gosh. Okay. So look, I can't remember who it was that made the statement, like, I'm rooting for everything Black. And when I think about that, I think about you. Right.
Yes,
and it's crazy because we haven't even known each other that long. But when you was like, I'm sporting for everything that is Black, you know what I'm saying? It's amazing, because we need more of that, and we need more support for Black everybody. Like, whatever industry you're in, we need it. And it's crazy because you see a lot of people making amazing strides in every industry. But when you really crunch the numbers, it is almost non-existent. Right?
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like I even did some research on just Black attorneys, Black female attorneys. And because I was pitching myself to this magazine. And I come to find out that the legal industry only has 1% of women attorneys, right? Now, if we're looking at like small firms or whatever, right? 1% of those attorneys are female attorneys. But then when we look at Black women associate attorneys, you're talking about 0.3, 0.4. And so as many Black people as I know in my industry, it's still weird because it's like it feels like a lot, but it's not a lot. So we need more advocates like that. Yeah. So how
100%.
are you? Yeah, go ahead.
So no, and you said rooting for everybody that's Black, man. Like that struck a chord with us, and that's actually the outro to our Black in Sports podcast. And it was Wale and Issa Rae that said it on the red carpet. So just a combination of them two, you know, having that mindset, because Issa Rae's doing, you know, phenomenal things, you know, a little sad last season of Insecure, but she's been doing her thing. And just like when they ask her, like, who you rooting for? And I think that's one of the things that we have to tackle with our culture is being in that unified kind of stance where, like, I don't care what you do or where you come from. I just want to see you win. And other cultures do that. So that's kind of the place that we're coming from.
Yes, yes. Other cultures do that. And we could be here all day talking about why there's an issue or a rift into the Black community. We all know where it stems from. I don't want to bring the vibe down. So we go keep it real. So look, so you have been so successful in the sports business marketing. I want you to just kind of like tell people a little bit more about who you've worked for, what you do, and how you were able to come into this particular field that has garnered so much success for you.
Yeah. You know, not a direct path, right? And in life, you know, we get frustrated with that because it's not, I guess one of the things that I've learned is I don't give my mentees advice. And I know one of my mentees is listening and he really hates it because I can't give you advice because your situation and my situation are different. I can tell you maybe what I've done in a situation such as yours. I can maybe give you maybe places to look for resources to make that ultimate decisions. But, you know, I really stopped giving, you know, giving that kind of feedback to some of my mentees. So to tell you my story, just to touch points of some of the places. So once I got to Vegas, we'll start with Vegas. You know, I work for MGM Resorts International. So MGM Resorts is really, you think of just hospitality gaming. Then it became hospitality gaming nightlife, and then became hospitality gaming nightlife and entertainment, and then sports and entertainment synonymous, right? So Las Vegas has been really pushing to get a sports team for a while. When I was at MGM, some of the notable things is I opened T-Mobile Arena. So we opened that with the hopes of getting a team. You know, I was on the starting 75 that helped push to get the hockey team here. So, you know, we did like petitions and you know, put down deposit lists and stuff like that. So I was helping work on that, opened up T-Mobile Arena. I was the AGM at Fresno State doing sponsorships. So learning just how the sponsorship deals and corporate deals work for a university. And then another just major one is I had the opportunity to work and sell out the Raiders Stadium here in Las Vegas. So those are some great opportunities, and taking that knowledge of working with corporate, I'm like, well, if I can sign 6-figure deals, I can help some of these athletes sign, you know, $5,000, you know, $1,000 deals. It does more movement for them and doing their camps or doing anything for their nonprofit. So that's where the first idea came from. Cause like, if I'm comfortable asking for 6 figures, I can go ahead and get you $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 for your camp or for institution.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. And, you know, with a lot of these athletes who have camps as nonprofits, you know, it's really, I think it's more profitable for the ones who are definitely pro, you know, because every kid wants to be around a professional athlete. But and it's also a mechanism for you to kind of get rid of some of your expense, right? Because you can deduct a lot of stuff through your nonprofit. But what I've come to realize is that a lot of individuals who are in sports or think they want to create a nonprofit, they have no idea of how to make it a profitable nonprofit, because people think because the words precede and says nonprofit that you can't have any money. But you can't make any money.
I want to say that again.
Right. So no, that's really cool though. And you've done so much in the industry already. You've helped so many people. So I'm curious to know what has been you can give me a few examples if you want, but what has been one of the most challenging things you've encountered as an entrepreneur or in any position that you've worked in, and how were you able to overcome it?
I would say the most challenging thing is being Black in sports. When you look around, and I'm glad that you talked about that, and I'm glad that the 1% kind of struck a chord with you, but when you look at management and leaders, right? Because a lot of times, when you go through college and business school and all that stuff, they're like, oh, find a sponsor, get mentors and things like that. And my pool of mentors that I can choose from don't look like me. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't, because I also believe in a board of directors. I believe we all should have a board of directors. And if you know what a board of directors is, people with many skill sets. So, you should have your personal board of directors that you talk about finance, maybe career, life, whatever. But my list of board of directors or people that to sponsor me do not look like me. And that's tough when offering certain things about the dynamic and movement within inside the corporate stratosphere. So I think that's been the toughest challenge of navigating that. And then just the pressures that it comes once you grow up that ladder is because we all can't look out for each other, but we just feel the pressure that we can't.
Yeah. And then we feel more pressure when you are, I'm going to say the 1% in the Black community. Like you've gotten to a certain level of success, you feel the pressure then too, because then you feel like you owe it to everybody else to not screw this up, where you are only human. But I have to agree with you in terms of that mentorship. When I first became an attorney, the state bar has this program, you get legal education credits. So they match you with a mentor. Okay. And my mentor was this older white guy, and he seemed to be pretty cool, but there was a huge conflict. Right. So there was a conflict in how he communicated with me and how I received the information. There was a conflict in how I understood what he was saying, because sometimes the way that he would speak to me, and it made me so uncomfortable because it was like, you should know this already. Like you've gone through law school, and anyone who, right, you go to graduate level or some doctorate program, they teach you the basics of what you need to know. Once you get into the real world, it's a different story. So some of the jargon that people may use in their industry is different. Some of the procedures or the process that they use is different. And so you can be so anxious around everything that's happening because you're trying to not only get caught up in a more confident way, you know what I'm saying? But you're still on the job learning. And so I could not continue with him because I almost felt as though I was being belittled and had that vibe in terms of the racial component, and it's hard to describe to some people because they don't really get it. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. And the thing about it is it's not intentional. It's not. It's just a thing. It's there. And like everything in life, we can't always put in a box or directly explain it. But I know what you're talking about. Right. And I know several others that deal, in this realm or have been that 1% or been I dislike this word, a minority in that situation, definitely understands that.
Yeah, for sure. So I love the fact that there are Black professionals like you and I who are creating spaces for amazing voices to be heard, creating spaces for opportunities, creating spaces for collaboration, because it's something that we absolutely need. And when I met you and you were telling me about Black in Sports podcast, I'm like, dang, I feel like I'm over here. I don't have my stuff together. I'm like, that is so cool. So I want you to tell me about your podcast, which I've had the pleasure of being on, and you and your co-hosts are super mad cool. But tell me about how that came to be and some of the guests that you've had so far and what it is that you're trying to do with this podcast.
Yeah, so Black in Sports started in 2019. as a thought, and just was working with having a voice. I think I started noticing early on that athletes were creating a voice for themselves, and athletes can do that. So you've talked on one of your shows about like athletes, making moves, and you talk about like LeBron James and what he's doing with Spring Hill, and Kevin Durant, also what he's doing in other forms, but he has a media platform. And then just what ESPN is doing with their Undisputed, which is giving more of a cultural view. And there's really not a voice for the business side of it. It's always springing from the athletes. And while I am still a former athlete, I'm not the athlete I'm not the professional athlete is where this voice is coming from. So I wanted to bring a voice to the people that work in sports that you don't normally think of. And because so many people want to work in sports, or just don't even know that there's so many venues or vessels that you can work in sports in, you don't just have to be able to shoot, kick, or hit a baseball or whatever, right? Or run track. Shout out to you. But and so started this journey on like, okay, what makes sense, right? So was it just me? And I was like, like I toot my own horn, I pat myself on the back, but I wanted some different opinions to flow. So then, I went through a couple people and I found, MH, right? So me and MH just really different opinions, but vibe on this overall goal of giving a platform and a voice. And then it was like, okay, are we going to be two talking heads? And then it just became like, interview. Like we talk about giving a platform, like let's give a platform. And we started right before the pandemic hit. Started in 2020 because like it took time of craft, and we put care and thought into this. And I just definitely had an agenda of what I wanted to build and create. And we started off. We started off the beginning of the year. Pandemic hit. Definitely talking about pivotal points. I was afraid to call it Black in sports.
Why?
And I know you're asking me, so I can tell.
Like the black pulling the black card.
It's perceived. It's strong. It's Black. It's a conversation that people are afraid of. And with that, going out and saying Black in sports, some people could be offended. Some people are it's just that power and that fierceness of Black in sports, right? Because we still have colleagues that, are scared to say Black people. There's African American, or, some people say, do I call you? No, I'm not going to take it there. Do I call you colored? But there's just that fear of calling it Black in sports. And I still need to make my money in this corporate world. So I can't go out blindly and someone see Black in sports and have that fear of connotation of it. So that in itself was a big leap. So fast forward, we get in, we're rocking and rolling, I move forward because this is what it is, right? And then George Floyd happens, and, love it or hate it, it opened people up, and it took that stigma away from it. And, we just went from there. To follow up and to wrap up what you kind of asked was who we had on there. We've been blessed to have some amazing people. So we had you on season 2, episode 10. So make sure you check that out. So season 2, okay, episode 10. Check my sister out. But we've had Darren Waller, current, Pro Bowl tight end. He announced launching his foundation on our show. And that's like pivotal stuff. Like, yeah, it's cool that he was a tight end, but the fact that he came on our platform and gave us the first, exclusive benefit or breakout that, he's launching his foundation. We had call him Uncle L, Larry Lester. We had Uncle L on, who fought for Negro League to get their stats put in the Major League Hall of Fame. And the day we had him scheduled, that we recorded on Wednesday and we post our shows on Thursday. That Wednesday, the MLB announced that they were adding the Negro League's stats to the Hall of Fame. And it's just like, we did that in the time, and like, look at God, right? So that was dope. We've had Rusha Brown, who was one of the inaugural players for the WNBA. It's just, and all of our guests add something that's just really dope flair to it. And we've just been blessed to kind of have those monumental movements, and I could go on and on. But hey, you just need to tune in, Black in Sports, on YouTube, Black in Sports Podcast, or wherever you listen to your podcast. We're on all streaming networks, so you got to definitely check that out.
That is amazing. And, I do think some people, even us as Black or African American, however you call yourself, sometimes it's you feel like you're cutting out certain people, right? But then you have to think like there is no exclusive place for us unless we create that room, that space for us. And so I'm glad that you didn't allow your fear to keep you from calling it what it is, because we do need to hear more Black voices in this sports space, in the sports industry, because at the end of the day, the makeup of the teams, especially depending on the sport that we're talking about, the ones that they classify as Black sports, are over 70% Black, but the people in administration don't represent them. You know,
Right.
you don't look like the people who are playing for you and who are bringing in millions or billions of dollars on an annual basis. And so we need certain spaces where we can just call it what it is and say, look, it's time that we highlight these amazing people who are doing amazing things in these organizations who don't get the spotlight. Because, I mean, come on, you might go on let's say you want to go on a cruise if you like cruises, right? If you're not an individual who's working on all of the tools and the things at the bottom of the ship that helps it to sail down the ocean, it wouldn't work. And so some of these professionals that are in sports and who are Black in sports, they are the ones making sure that it's a well-oiled machine that's keeping things moving along. They are the silent heroes that we never hear about. I mean, the Black women who helped the rocket go to Mars. You understand? I mean, to the moon, right? Like, you never hear about these people unless we promote these voices. And it to me, it can get so deep. Even when this is not something that has just happened. You know, when I read and think about or study the archaeological, right, like stories in the Bible. A lot of this stuff was so Black, right? The stories were so Black, and then they get turned over time and watered down or misrepresented or whitewashed in a way that it takes away all of the Blackness and makes us feel like we have no place. But it's a false narrative, and we do. And that's why I appreciate people like you who are not afraid. Although fear was one of the things that you had initially, you still fought against the grain and said, you know what? It's time to do it. Yeah. Yeah. So you also talked about George Floyd. So I launched my podcast in 2020. I didn't even think this is not something contrary to you. I didn't want to do this. Okay. But when I wrote my first book, What Are You Sporting About? I was having these conversations and through webinars. And I was like, this is not sustainable. I can't keep having webinars because it's a lot. So podcasting was one of those things. But when I was launching the book, George Floyd death occurred, and I was so emotional. And it was another reason why I said I have to do this podcast, because What Are You Sporting About is so deep and it's different for everybody. I want other people to feel encouraged and empowered to know that you may not have it all figured out, and you don't have to have it figured out right now, but you should know, there should be an inkling in you to understand, or at least know what you are sporting about in this life. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Makes sense.
So, yeah, for sure. So, EJ, where can people find you and follow you? I know you talked about Black in sports, but where can people get connected with you at if they want to chat with you, figure out how to move around in this marketing space, sports marketing space? Because we definitely need more of us in that industry.
No, 100%. And I know diverse representation, they do a great job of really building out with Black sports professionals, which I am the Las Vegas chapter president, is doing a really good job of partnering with these others. So like Minority of Sports and the Color of Sports, but diverse representation, they're doing a great job of championing and highlighting people that's more in your field as well. But the easiest way to get a hold of me is it's EJ Cutliff. So that's Cutliff as in Frank. I'm there everywhere. So just to keep it simple. So look me up on LinkedIn is probably the best way to get in touch with me. Because from there you can see LinkedIn, you can see Black in Sports, you can see Esoteric Sports Alliance, you can see Black Sports Professionals, and you can see what I'm up to currently.
Yes, sir. Well, I am so happy that I had a chance to chat with you today. Guys, make sure that you go to your favorite podcasting platform and download or sign up for What Are You Sporting About so you never miss an episode, because I want to make sure that I'm bringing individuals on this platform that can educate you, motivate you, and support you to your next level. But the only way to get that done is for you to take the first step. Subscribe. Follow us. Keep up with us at prosportlawyer.com. Follow us on social at What Are You Sporting About. Until next time, I'll check you guys later. Ciao.
Thanks, sis.
You're welcome. Oh, I like that. Minding my Black-owned business. We out here. Ciao.
Thanks for joining us this week on What Are You Sporting About podcast. Make sure to visit our website, prosportlawyer.com, where you can subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, or whatever your favorite platform is, so you'll never miss a show. And while you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes or iHeartRadio. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. If you like the show, you might want to check out our book, What Are You Sporting About? Attorney Sivonnia DeBarros is available for private consulting at sldebarros.com. And remember, we're here to educate, support, and guide you in your journey to success, because we're all sporting about something.